Hey everybody, I'm with Josiah Teal, and we're talking about Jungle Cruise. And I think I chose you to talk about this because it sounds like you have a Disney parks background. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's similar to mine. What? So I'm on the West Coast. So I was a 15-year annual pass holder at Disneyland. So I've been on the Jungle Cruise way too many times. What's your experience with the Jungle Cruise?
I pretty similar as far as oh gosh, I lived in Florida for about a year and my wife was a cast member, so I've been close to like 340 times and rode Jungle Cruise on most of those. So I've got a lot of the jokes down.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if there's any real significant differences between the two rides. I know that Disneyland's a little bit shorter because they've had to make it smaller to get Indiana Jones in, and we're
Oh
getting
yeah.
into the weeds here. But we are talking about the movie, and I should also warn everybody: we will get into spoiler territory, especially in the second half of this review. So just fair warning here. Yeah, so yeah, I will tell you my experience on the Jungle Cruise. I've been on it way too many times to count, but I had a once in a lifetime experience. And if any Disneyland fan knows who Maynard is, my wife and I got to go on a night jungle cruise with Maynard. And he's a very eccentric character in the park, yeah, cast member in the park, and character in a way. And his jungle cruise spiel was a steady stream of consciousness that made zero sense, but it was just an amazing experience just to be on the boat with him. And so I don't know. Do you have any good Jungle Cruise stories yourself?
There was a couple times that we had people that were like in training that were doing it, and sometimes those can be a little hit and miss because they'll be a little nervous. But
Yeah.
there was I don't even remember her name or anything, but she just like killed it. Like she was like, I'm gonna go for it this time, and it was one of the best ones I've ever been on. Like you could tell she was like super excited to be there and stuff, so I
Yeah.
enjoyed that.
Yeah, I've had friends who have been able to be kept skippers on the Jungle Cruise, and that's probably the best experience they've ever had at a job. Okay, so let's talk about the Jungle Cruise or Disney's Jungle Cruise. So the question I have is, what I don't know, what kind of expectations do you have going in, and from a perspective of what you expected from an attractions based movie. We've had Haunted Mansion, we've had Pirates of the Caribbean. So what were you kind of thinking about going into the movie?
I feel like those are the two extremes when it comes to attraction like base movies. Like I love the original Pirates of the Caribbean, but then Haunted Mansion was all kinds of a mess. And I love the ride so much, and I feel like going into it, my expectations were low. Generally, with a lot of Disney's live action films, my expectations are kind of low going into those, especially the remakes. And with this being based on an attraction, I felt a little better going into it, but still low expectations. Wasn't expecting to be wowed.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like the Jungle Cruise has a story. It's essentially it's a cruise, and that's kind of captured in the first 20 minutes of the movie.
Oh yeah.
So it's not like we're tied emotionally to a story, so to speak. Haunted Mansion, there was a story behind it, and the movie failed to capture any bit of that story. And then Pirates, it had somewhat of a story, but to the point where Pirates, they took characters from the movie and then put it in the ride. So there's kind of a hybrid there.
And
And so yeah, I think I was like you, that my expectations were very low.
I feel like there was like I get with like Pirates and with Jungle Cruise, since there's not such a like a story to follow, there's more room, I guess, to branch off. Where Haunted Mansion, it's kind of has to live up to the story the mansion has, and
Mhm.
I mean Disney fans are going to go into that knowing all the things they want to see.
Yeah, I should also mention technically there's a Tower of Terror television movie, but who cares? All right. Yeah. So yeah, what were your general thoughts about Jungle Cruise?
I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. As far as I thought that Emily Blunt and Dwayne Johnson had really good chemistry together. I felt like I always enjoy seeing Paul Giamatti in just about anything, especially since I was a kid and like seeing Big Fat Liar, and that he'll just always go for it. So I thought that was really fun. I mean, I have my hangups with it, but I was like, this was better than it should have been.
Yeah, I had fun as well. I mean, I think the movie is all about Emily Blunt and Dwayne Johnson. I'll just say this about Paul Giamatti. I love the early stage onset skin cancer look that he had. It is, but yeah, this whole movie really is for me this Emily Blunt, Dwayne Johnson relationship. She's kind of the, I liken it to, these two would make great D&D characters in the sense of in their attitude and in their skill set. Emily's kind of the educated, street smart thief kind of character, while Dwayne is is a streetwise, knows the jungle back and forth, the river back and forth, kind of brute character. And I like that dynamic between the two of them.
I think that's a really good way to kind of categorize it. It is almost like a jungle D&D campaign, and even McGregor, Emily Blunt's brother in the movie, is like, he fits kind of like almost like the bard who's kind of out of water, kind of trying to make stuff up as he goes along kind of character, and that's usually the character I play. So I kind of enjoyed seeing that.
Yeah, he plays the character, the guy who gets captured and is used as blackmail.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So I got two vibes from the movie. The first half of the movie felt like Indiana Jones, and the second half of the movie felt like Pirates of the Caribbean. I liked the first half much better than the second half, because it did feel like an adventure. And I think the big difference between the two is that Indiana Jones is all practical effects, while this movie, it's just a CG explosion, and I thought it did a pretty good job. But it's clear that most of this is animated fare.
Yeah, I felt like that's a good way to put it. Is definitely that Indiana Jones is the first half, Pirates is the second. I'm not sure we needed all the Pirates of the Caribbean stuff in the second half. And 2021, we've seen a million CGI fight scenes, so and a million CGI worlds, and so there's a lot of moments like that where I'm not sure what else it brings to the conversation. I know that they're gonna do it, but sometimes I prefer that Indiana Jones kind of style.
Yeah, I just kind of wish they went in a different direction. It's kind of like you're taking two genres that you love, or at least one and a half genres that you love, pirates and indie, and there's a moment where it was like, well, I feel like we could have done something different.
And Indiana Jones has like that nugget of the supernatural, but at least in the first three, you never have like legitimate like ghost skeletons attacking Indiana Jones or anything like that. And yeah, I feel like when that happened was definitely the moment I was like, I'm not sure this was necessary. It could have been this fun jungle adventure, and they're running away from like these German soldiers and this evil prince kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that's where we get into the low expectations of Disney live animated, or the low expectations of Disney live action movies.
Live animated might be right.
yeah, it's like Fast and Furious. It's all just animation. I find it interesting that why do we love the animated stuff better than the live action from Disney, and I think it's due to the fact that with the animated stuff, they can change things on a dime and at the last moment. And so they can take a story, animate it, work it over and over and over again until they have a perfect movie. And that's a luxury that they don't have with the live action stuff. And, you can see clearly, Walt Disney himself, his animated features versus his live action stuff. If you watch, the Computer That Wore Tennis Shoes, or the Barefoot Executive, or the $1 Million Duck, just go on Disney Plus and see a lot of the old stuff, and it's very silly, wacky, and there's definitely that tone in Jungle Cruise.
I appreciated that, and being a fan of the ride, I did like that they kind of peppered in some of the jokes that anyone who's been on it would have heard a million times. And I mean, at a certain point with Disney movies, you kind of have to expect some of these Easter eggs for fans, and then these callbacks and this certain familiarity with it. I think it's almost expected at this point for movies like that.
Yeah, so let's talk about that moment when Dwayne Johnson is Skipper Frank and doing his Jungle Cruise spiel. What were your impressions? Did it live up to your expectations?
They hit the backside of water joke that they do all the time, and he hypes it up pretty well. I thought that was kind of fun, and I liked a lot that with him and Emily Blunt's character, they kind of showed you being charismatic and they showed you being resourceful and being funny rather than just kind of spiel and tell you that she's super smart or that she's good at lock picking or that he's really funny. They just let it happen, and I
Yeah.
felt that was way more organic.
Yeah, I think there's a, you know, when you have two veteran actors like this, more with Emily Blunt, you know, there's a an easy feeling. There's a chemistry there that just feels smooth and is just fun to watch. There's gravitas, maybe I'll use that word. Um, you know, it felt like they'd been friends forever, and that they're just making this fun movie, and that really comes across in Jungle Cruise.
Absolutely. I think like you said, the chemistry is just there. It really does feel like they're on this crazy adventure together, and it feels so much like they're able to just they've got a good rapport. It's constantly they're able to feed off each other's jokes and build on each other, and that was really entertaining to
Mhm.
watch. Like I said, much better than I had going into it. Much better than I expected.
Okay, let's specifically talk about the Jungle Cruise portion of it in terms of, you know, when Dwayne is doing the jokes. Yeah, you know, I think what they did right here was they were self-aware. They knew that Jungle Cruise fans were going to watch this sequence and judge it harshly, or judge it, you know, yeah, I mean, yeah, judge it harshly. And I feel like, you know, knowing that the way they approached it just really worked for me from a comedy standpoint.
I thought so too, and they very much they had the because any Jungle Cruise you go on, you're gonna have some people that are into it and they're like gonna think these jokes are funny, and then there's other people that are gonna groan at the puns. They're gonna grow at like the evil hippopotamus that's gonna attack you. And there was that moment where all the members on the cruise with Dwayne Johnson are like going, "Oh my gosh, this is too many puns. This is brutal." And so I thought that was cool to capture all of that, and Dwayne Johnson just playing it as like this is what I do, this is what I
Yeah.
love. It was great.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when you go on the ride, you're expecting bad puns, and so
Okay.
there's a level of appreciation for these jokes. While in the movie, it's like, oh my god, get this guy off. And then and then when they did the backside of water, we're not spoiling anything because this is in the trailer. But you know, it's one of those, you just know that joke's coming,
Oh yeah.
and so they set it up, they stretched it out, the setup, and then when the joke finally pays off, they came out. I mean, this is just really good writing, and you know, as a Jungle Cruise fan myself, I just had a real good time with it.
Absolutely. I thought that, yeah, like you said, they stretched it out, and when they finally did give the payoff to it, it was worth it. And it made the Disney fan of me be like, okay, that was really fun. They treated it well.
Okay, so we're on the scale. I gave it a 7.5, and I kind of wanted to see what you thought. What was your ultimate score on this?
I would give it about a 7, something like that. I felt like that going in was that it exceeded my expectations. Most of the other live action films I wouldn't have given something like a 7, but I felt like the stuff I didn't like about it would have weighed it down enough. It felt like a really good movie that I probably won't watch again for like 5 years or something like that.
I
And
probably would watch it again sooner than that. You know, I think there is that low expectation we have of Disney live action movies, and this is definitely. I don't think that it necessarily breaks through and becomes, you know, the live action movie to see, but it is high on the top list, the top tier.
oh, if yeah,
It is
for
high on the
yeah,
top. I'm sorry. Let me just. I'm mumbling my words. Okay.
I
It is high on that upper tier of Disney live action films. You know, I'm trying to think of a great Disney live action movie, and I fail to do that at the moment.
I would say if you were gonna make a tier list of it, it would be on one of the higher tiers. I do like Tron Legacy a lot. I know some people
Mhm.
didn't, but I just love like the Daft Punk score to that and stuff. And if you count the Muppets as live action Disney, then I think
Mhm.
that's great. But so I don't think I'd put it in that tier, but I mean definitely a tier like slightly below those. It would be in a
Yeah.
higher tier than a lot of the others.
Well, you mentioned the Muppets. You know, I'll compare it to Muppet Christmas Carol, which is a Disney movie.
All right.
Um, that one, Muppet Christmas Carol, has heart. You walk away feeling great. There's this elevation of that movie that goes on, and that just doesn't exist in Jungle Cruise. It's just a fun movie to watch, and and if you roll your eyes at most Disney movies, you're gonna have fun with this one.
Yeah,
It's just one of these backhanded compliments we're giving this movie.
I'm trying to avoid that, but I do feel like it's one of those where I'm going like, you have to go into it. No, like, there's certain things are just not going to happen. And the opening fight scene, nobody's going to die. That's a main character. You kind of have to realize that's not going to happen. And so there's stuff like that. It's fun. You sit back, you enjoy it, especially if you love the ride.
Yeah, and then let's also so clearly it's set up for sequels, and clearly I feel like that any sequel is going to fail, and it comes down to what was so good about this movie was that relationship, that distrust that Lily and Frank had with each other, that and that ends in a very Disney way, and that is the movie. That's the heart of this movie. And if you're going to do a sequel, you can't necessarily replicate it in a way that is better than or more elevated than this story.
I think for you to make a sequel, you have to unravel all of that trust again, and we don't want to see that. We've just seen them, build all that back up in this movie, and so that distrust and that constant, like, is he scamming me or is she scamming me, is what makes this one fun.
Yeah, and a sequel, and now okay, it's a Disney movie, so it's not much of a spoiler to know that the two they the two are now best buds, if not more so. And now a sequel would just be playing with dolls. It's like, here's my Frank character, here's my Lily character, and they go on this little adventure, and the heart of the movie, you've got to manufacture some kind of different conflict between the two of them to make it work. Because I don't want to see a superhero team now in the sequel.
No, and I don't. I mean, and you'd have to like build up a new, like, it's almost like the National Treasure thing. Like the first one, you've got this unfindable, amazing treasure, and then the second one, we're gonna do that again, and we're gonna, you have to now up the ante of what they're searching for, and then you have to exactly. You're playing with dolls at a certain point.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned National Treasure, because there was planned for a third one, and it never happened. And I think that's the reason why. It's like, what, are we gonna top ourselves on some minor plot that
right?
Now we talk about attractions. We'll just end on this one, but I mean, how many more attractions can you make a movie out of? Space Mountain, Big Thunder Mountain, Matterhorn, It's a Small World.
Right.
It's like I said, I think the issue that we have here is Disney attractions, as much as there is a story behind it, is there enough of a substantial story to warrant a 2-hour movie?
Right.
Space Mountain, people talk. Rumors have always flown around Space Mountain, but it's like, well, it's a roller coaster in the dark. Other than it's this thing that is going on with the big studios. It's taking intellectual property and developing some story on it, and this story is not something we have an emotional attachment to, other than the fact that it's a really cool ride, which is better at Disneyland.
It is true. It's way better at Disneyland. So much better. But I think you're right as far as, like, at a certain point, how many attractions can you do? I don't know if Soarin' really works as a movie, or Living with the Land, or some of those. Maybe like Space Mountain.
Think about Soarin' movie. A family gets stuck on a hang glider.
They just travel the world.
Yeah, they get flown over the world, and they can't get off the hang glider. I mean, Big Thunder Mountain probably has. I think there's such a loose story there. Anyways, I think the story is better told at Disney World, but I guess that's to me, I can only think that that's the next one, other than Rise of the Resistance.
Well, and it's like this kind of weird relationship of like rides that are inspiring movies, and then movies that are now inspiring rides, like with Pandora and Avatar and like Rise of the Resistance, or all the different like Star Wars IPs that they're bringing in and content. And it is kind of weird how that relationship's all playing out. And in some cases, I think it's handled really well. In other cases, not so much.
Yeah, I remember in the Eisner era of Disney that synergy was the key word. You know, they had just bought Cap Cities, they bought ESPN, and now it was like, well, we've got to make all this property we own work together. And you know, it's, you know, okay, I'll give you for example Snake Eyes. You know, Paramount has the GI Joe series franchise, and they've got to use it, and so they create Snake Eyes. But you know, if you've seen the movie, it has nothing to do with the Snake Eyes of the TV show. And so they so it's a martial arts movie with GI Joe overlaid to it. And I would submit that the GI Joe elements of that movie is what weakened that movie, if anything.
Well, and I haven't seen Snake Eyes yet, but I do. I understand that idea of that. It's they're wanting to create like almost like a brand familiarity and a brand loyalty within that, and I understand it. I don't always like it, like you said, because sometimes that's what will take away from the movie or stuff like that. Like certain movies would maybe just be a really cool martial arts movie or a really cool, like space movie or something like that, but they kind of throw in these elements that's the part that doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've talked about it in other podcasts and reviews, but you know, well, yeah, big studios are afraid to invest in original stories, and so and I think Disney is falling that in the fact that they are remaking a lot of their classics. You know, I think Pixar is the only true outlet of original stories that comes out of the Walt Disney Company.
And I think they're the most consistent. It's the ones that, like the Pixar movies, the ones I get the most excited for, and their shorts are the ones I really get excited for because even if it's a movie I know that's maybe a rehashing or a sequel, I know that short might be really, really cool and be a really cool original idea.
Yeah. Well, and that's what we do here at Film Thread. Is we do highlight and we do spotlight original stories. We have to. And if you watch any of Chris Gore's videos about sequels and why 99% of them suck, it just lends itself to that. Tell original stories. There are stories to be told, and it's a shame that the big studios won't invest in those, and that the independents have to scrap and save to get their films made.
And it seems to be the story that so many people are saying is that we want more original content, but it just kind of is like, is the studios ever gonna listen? And I hope someday they do, but
yeah. Well, I mean, I'll take their side for a second. If you're gonna invest $200 million in a movie, I don't think they're gonna do that on an original story unless it's the greatest original story ever.
You've got, no, it's true. Original stories don't always make T-shirts or bobbleheads, and that's kind of where they're wanting to make some money on. I understand it. It's kind of the nature of the beast, and I hate that. I feel weird saying it, but
yeah, I can't wait for the Proxima and Paul Giamatti toys to come out of this one.
I might buy the Paul Giamatti toy. I would do that.
Yeah, with flaky skin coming off. Okay. All right. Well, hey, that's our take on Jungle Cruise. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment below. Tell us what you thought of Jungle Cruise. Okay, so with that, let's get out of here.